Welcome back. According to the CDC, nearly 60% of Black maternal deaths are preventable. And here in New York City, Black mothers are 12 times more likely to die during childbirth. To combat these numbers, saveArose Foundation was established in honor of Amber Rose Isaac, a Bronx mother who tragically passed at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic after having complained about care at a local hospital. Amber would have turned 27 years old this February 23rd. Joining us now to share more are founder Bruce Mcintyre III and members Kattie Guerrero-Valoy and Jamilia Heredia of saveArose Foundation. Welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. So to start off, can you please tell us about saveArose Foundation and your mission?
Sure. So our mission at saveArose is to raise awareness on the disparities in the maternal mortality rate amongst women of color. This foundation is to honor Amber, who was full of life and expected her first child with so much hope for the future. And as she tweeted, she wanted to write a tell-all about her experience. So we are going to honor that. Because of this tragedy, we began to do our research. And as you stated, New York City is 12 times, right? So the alarming rate, 12 times higher than white moms. So Black moms are more likely to die. So saveArose wants to make sure that our people have the information they need and know what to ask when they receive care. And specifically for new moms, learn that there's other options for you besides giving birth in a hospital. You could have a midwife, you could have a doula. So we want to also make sure that we give back. We want to also make sure we promote art therapy, and that is to name a few things that Amber was eager to accomplish in her life. So that is our story at saveArose.
Thank you so much, Katie, for sharing. And Bruce, I met you at a rally you held in front of Montefiore on Eastchester Road last year during the summertime, I believe it was. And ever since then, you've been steadfast with your work here with saveArose. Can you please share your story and inspiration behind continuing this fight against Black maternal health disparities?
Yeah, so my story starts with, of course, my situation with Amber and myself. My fiance, Amber Rose Isaac, passed away on April 20th, 2020. And this was due to an emergency C-section that stemmed from medical negligence. You know, her health was starting to deteriorate in December of 2019, and we weren't made aware. Her platelet levels actually started to decrease. However, we didn't know about her conditions and how severe they were until April 3rd, when our midwife, really brought it up to us. And we discovered that she had Hope syndrome on the very last day, on April 20th, when they decided that they wanted to induce her labor. They induced her labor a month and 10 days early. And she was actually forced to do the C-section because, she had no other option due to, they weren't acting accordingly, and she was being neglected for months. And my inspiration simply comes from my love for Amber and how she impacted myself, how she impacted her community, how she impacted the people around her. She was just an inspiring person to be around. And, she earned her bachelor's in psychology in 2018. She was on her way to earning her master's degree for business development. She wanted to provide for underprivileged families and provide outlets for them, and all while she's learning the changes in her body while she's pregnant. And, she's learning about, what are the correct vitamins and nutrients she should be giving our son Elias. And I just think that talks so much about her character and who she is.
Thank you, Bruce, so much for sharing about Amber, and my continued condolences to you and your family baby Elias, for your loss. Her story is still, very heartbreaking, and it's going to continue being heartbreaking because this is an issue that still hasn't ended in our country, and that's why saveArose Foundation is here. I wanted to ask in what ways your foundation has sought to dismantle these systemic flaws in the healthcare system. What has come about since the beginning of your advocacy for these issues?
So what's come about thus far is we have been seeing a curve and within the racial disparities within healthcare. And that's simply because providers are just being more cautious with how they're treating us now that they're under a scope. I've actually been speaking to a number of colleges, and that's including Harvard, New York School of Medicine, Columbia. I've spoken to numerous politicians, mayors, senators, legislators, city council members on the racial disparities and how we can change them. And I've actually shared the numbers that I've come across during my study. And as you know, that women of color are 4 to 5 more times more likely to die than their white counterparts. And in New York City, that range is from 8 to 12 more times likely. And those numbers are before COVID hit. So now these numbers are exacerbated. And the hospitals within our Black and Brown communities have been so substantially defunded, and that's leading the Bronx to have the highest C-section rate in New York City. Now, over 60% of these women do not need C-sections, right? And when you become high risk, this now becomes a medical issue to where surgery needs to be performed. And this is where they're securing about an extra $8,000 more versus what they would have made for a natural birth. And that's where they're clearly putting profit over people at this matter. And to counter that, right, I've been a partnering effort in bringing the first ever midwifery-led birthing center to the Bronx. So, our community receives the attentive care that we deserve. We've also been working with a collective of birth workers, movement to birth liberation, and that's to push for systemic change. And we've been working closely with Senator Rivera's cabinet, chairman of the healthcare committee, Richard Gottfried. They've actually decided that they were going to implement our words into the New York Health Act per verbatim. So they're going to use our exact words for the New York Health Act, as well as Nubia Earth Martin with Birth from the Earth, our midwife. We created a program called the Rose Isaac Access to Home Birth Scholarship Program. And what this program does is it offsets the cost of insurance premiums. We cover what insurance does not cover. And, that's to get, the mothers more attentive care and make this more accessible and affordable to the people of our community.
Wow. Oh my gosh. A lot of accomplishments and a lot of great things happening over at the foundation. No, thank you so much for sharing that. But of course, those triumphs were not without challenge. I want to turn over to Jamilia and ask her what some of the challenges have been in your journeys in addressing these disparities publicly, specifically, not just against a big institution like Montefiore, but globally against the racist health system as is.
So some of the challenges are the lack of awareness about the maternal health crisis, right? So people not being aware or even really knowing about it. And one of the real challenges has been the lack of support, needing more than just the birth workers to care about the issue, right? So we need other people to know about what's going on and to care about it so that we can get bills passed, so that we can get more resources, more funding. All of those things are extremely important. And this is and has been affecting families for generations. It isn't something that has just occurred. This treatment has been longstanding since even the 1800s, when there was a stigma made to believe that African Americans had thicker skin and were more tolerable to pain. So doctors and people in the healthcare system having these implicit bias based off of what they learn in medical school. And some of these things are still being practiced in medicine today. And so that just goes back to and ties into it being connected to deeply rooted systemic and structural racism that affects the Black and Brown community. And not just in medical institutions, but as well as in policing, housing, and education. So those are just some of the challenges we're facing.
Thank you, Jamilia. Turning back to Bruce, in 2019, now Vice President Kamala Harris reintroduced the Maternal Care Act, a bill tackling racial disparities in maternal health. How do you feel about this act, and what will it mean to Black mothers, and what is needed to push it forward?
I'm personally glad that she is partnering with Lauren Underwood for this act. And that act is actually a part of the Momnibus bill, which holds 9 inclusive acts, which are all dedicated to dismantling the systemic flaws within the healthcare system. And that's big for us. That means that we can start holding people accountable. That means, things are going to be more accessible and more affordable to us. Um, and people are going to be held accountable for their actions if they choose to harm us. And I wholeheartedly believe in the people that created these acts. I've talked to several of them, and they're great people on the same mission that we're on. This is something that is made by us and for us, you know um, and this means that there's going to be quality care provided for people of color now. you know um, we're going to be heard more. Our concerns aren't just going to be brushed away anymore. So that's what I'm looking forward to, so families can return home safely and spend time and love each other like they're supposed to.
Absolutely. God-given human right that we should all have access to. So thank you for sharing that as well. And Jamilia, what are the outright solutions to begin eradicating Black maternal mortality across the board, in your opinion, just to put it plainly?
To put it plainly, we need more access to quality care, right? Because we know that 3 to 4 times women, Black women, people of color, Indigenous people are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from and during childbirth. And this statistic has remained unchanged for over 3 decades. And with COVID, I'm sure those rates have been exacerbated, and we won't have statistics for a while. So access to quality care, including doulas, midwifery care, counselors, and making sure that these things are covered through equitable insurance. Investing and giving resources to new moms for postpartum care as well as other mental health concerns. Having more options, so more options in the hospital, midwifery-led birth centers, options for home birth as well, and changes to the medical industrial complex and treating people based on individual care. So treating you as a human and not just someone that's going through a system.
Thank you, Jamilia. And I'm sure that folks can see that on your platform at saveArose Foundation on Instagram, as well as any social media pages that you guys have as well. I'll be sure to share that at the end. But before we go, Katie, can you just share your artist call and how artists can participate in it, as well as how people can stay in touch and support the saveArose Foundation at this time?
Sure. So this month we have some events happening leading up to her 27th birthday. Specifically, we launched a call for all people that are creative, because Amber herself was. She expressed herself through art. And as mentioned, she always said art therapy is something very, very important to her. So we want people to create a piece to honor her, and we want to showcase it on all of our social media platforms. You could absolutely follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. It's saveArose.foundation. We also have a fundraiser going on for this month as well. You could go to our link tree that's in our bio on our Instagram page, as well as use that platform to stay up to date to what we have going on.
Thank you so much, Bruce, Jamilia, and Katie, for joining us today and sharing more about the saveArose Foundation.
Thank you so much for having
us. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Folks, again, for more information, please follow at saveArose.foundation on social media. Again, the saveArose Foundation will be holding an open artist call for Amber Rose Isaac's birthday and Black Maternal Health Awareness. The submission deadline is February 20th, and the pieces will be featured on the saveArose platform on February 23rd. If you'd like to submit, visit their social media pages for more details. We'll be right back.